to another episode of the Optimistic Met Fan Podcast. I'm your host, Frank Osberger, and on today's show, we're going to be discussing Bo Bichette. We got Bo Bichette. We pivoted perfectly from not signing Kyle Tucker, so we're going to dive in and we're going to talk about Bo coming to the New York Mets. Also, we're going to talk about his impending move to third base. Is that going to be an issue? And we're going to talk about just his overall impact on the New York Mets in 2026. So let's dive right in. So, as everybody knows, last week we had Kyle Tucker, of course, sign with the hated, evil empire that is the LA Dodgers. And Thursday night, when I got that news right before midnight, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was pretty annoyed, like most baseball fans. And it was like, here we go again. The Dodgers just won back-to-back World Series, and they just got one of the best free agents on the market and outbid the Mets yet again for a superstar player. Now, when I say superstar player, Kyle Tucker is one of the top players in baseball. However, I wouldn't put him on the level of Ohtani or Soto or Judge or any of those guys. So the $60 million that he got from the LA Dodgers was, in my opinion, kind of ridiculous. Will this affect baseball down the line with the impending lockout that could happen and the CBA agreement? I don't know. I'm not going to predict that. That's a fun topic to talk about at a later time. But, in the moment when somebody signs like that, and you being a Met fan, myself being a Met fan, we're all thinking Steve Cohen's overpaying for this guy, but he needs to do it. I was okay with that. What I wasn't okay with was seeing him go to the Dodgers. That really disturbed me a little bit. And, $55 million would have been way too much for the Mets to spend on Kyle Tucker. Let's be honest. He's not worth more than Juan Soto. And that really would have, I think, hurt future moves that the Mets probably wouldn't be able to make, that they ended up making this past week. So, everything happens for a reason. I think the Mets, like I said, pivoted perfectly. So let's dive into who they pivoted to. And that's Bo Bichette. Okay, this guy, a lifetime .294 hitter. And what's more impressive is the fact that he hits in the clutch. Check out these numbers. And I just have to lean over to look at my notes because I just got so excited about how freaking good this guy is. But this guy's clutch. He's a gamer. Okay, first and foremost, before I get into the stats. But with runners in scoring position, he's batting .330. Okay, this is an area that the Mets struggled in mightily last year, and they needed a guy like this. So, .330 batting average at runners in scoring position. He's a pure hitter. Okay, lifetime, like I said, .294 hitter. He hit .311 last year. Okay, so this guy, definitely a must-have in the lineup for the New York Mets. Now you have, from top to bottom, you're looking like, I'll get into the lineup a little bit later in this episode, but just having Lindor, Soto, and then a guy like Bichette just really excites the hell out of me, especially looking at how the offseason started, right? Like, we were like, who are we getting offense from other than Lindor and Soto when you lost out on Tucker, right? You, at the beginning of the offseason, lost Pete Alonso. You traded Nemo. You traded away Jeff McNeil, right? That's a lot of offense, even if you're going to argue that Jeff McNeil was a little disappointing. That's still offense that you have to replace. And the Mets weren't doing that. So this was just really great news to wake up to Friday morning, finding out that we got Bo Bichette. after the night before losing Kyle Tucker. But like I said, when this guy hits, like, check out these numbers. Like, I'm like, this ain't even exaggerating. I had to look all this up because I was amazed. 2021 and 2022, he led the league, Major League Baseball, in hits. Okay, with 191 in 21, and then in 22 we had 189. So, yeah, this guy's legit hitter. Then in 2023 he had 175 hits, and then again last year, even though he missed a month, still had 181 hits. So, yeah, I think the Mets got a steal here for, that 3-year contract with the opt out after the first year. I think this is fantastic. He brings clutchness to this team. He brings fire. He brings determination. He brings a good work ethic. He works his ass off. This is the type of guy that the Mets needed to sign. I am so happy that they got this guy. I love his attitude. In his press conference, he's talking about doing whatever it takes to be on a good team, doing whatever it takes to win. I love that. He has a smile on his face. He's looks like he's going to just gel with Lindor and Soto and all the other guys on this team. I'm so excited. Changing positions, though, to be fair, he's going to third base, okay? He's a lifetime shortstop. Played second base in the World Series at a high level. So this guy's an athlete. I'm a little worried about third base, but am I panicking over the fact that he has to move over to third base when we've seen guys do this before? No. I think he'll do fine with Lindor at shortstop and Simeon at second base. The good catching combo of Terens and Alvarez. The infield's in good shape. So I have no doubt with the Met coaches, with, like I said, the work ethic that this guy has. I think he's going to pick up third base like nothing. I think this is going to be fine. Is it a question mark? Sure. To be fair, it is a question mark. You can't say that it's a slam dunk, but we've seen a ton of shortstops move to third, and they do perfectly fine. So I am not even worried about that. And just to look up some of his defensive struggles, if you can call them that, I think it's way overrated because, yes, I'm going to read off some of these stats throughout the years that he's had. In 2021, in 148 games, he had 24 errors. Okay, so not so great. Okay. Admittingly, it's not great. 95% fielding percentage, though. So not terrible. In 2022, in 157 games, had 23 errors. And again, had a 95% fielding percentage. So first 2 years, great hitting, like I said. Defense was a little bit of a struggle. Okay. Had a lot of throwing errors, had a lot of fielding mistakes. But then in 2023, jumps up to a fielding percentage of 98, which I think is a huge improvement. And in 130 games, had only 8 errors. So you're looking at a guy that in his first 2 years at shortstop struggled, had over 20 errors each season. But then the third year that he's a shortstop, he drastically improves to 8 errors for the whole year. So this misconception that he can't play defense and that he's a terrible defensive player is, I think, a little overblown, especially when you look at the next 2 years. In 2024, had a 97% fielding percentage, and this was the year where he had a lot of those calf injuries, so that did play a toll. But in 81 games, had 7 errors. So, okay, you can see that he was probably going to have more than what he had the year before. But again, not bad numbers. And then in 2025, last year, played 132 games at shortstop and had 12 errors. So, not terrible. Not great, but not terrible. And I think as long as his offense stays true to what type of hitter he is, I think this is a great move by the New York Mets. I am not worried about his defense because if he hits, he's going to make up for that. He brings another great point to make with him is that he brings stability to this lineup, okay, with a little bit of protection for Juan Soto, along with Jorge Polanco batting behind him. I think this lineup gets a little bit deeper, gets a little bit more fearsome to other pitchers, right? Like that was something we were concerned with. Like who's going to hit after Lindor and Soto? Well, now you're looking at a lineup, and I'm going to get into it right now, of Lindor leading off, Soto batting second, our new man Bo Bichette batting third. You could have Polanco batting fourth, Beatty batting fifth, playing where he's going to play, probably left field, which he played in AAA. So I don't even think that's going to be an issue, but I can get into that at a later episode if you guys would like. Vientos DHing or playing first base, batting sixth. The newly acquired Luis Robert batting seventh, playing center at a high level. You have Alvarez and Terrence catching at eighth. And then you can have Simeon. Yes, I know he's declining in offense, but I think he can be a perfect number 9 hitter for this team. And now you're looking at a deep lineup, and you're looking at a lineup that's going to grind out base hits. They're going to make pitchers work. This is something that they had trouble with last season. They all have good OPSs. I think this is a great thing for the New York Mets to have Bo Bichette. He completes this team as far as the offense goes, and I'm not worried about him at all. Another thing I wanted to bring up, because people keep bringing this up online, is the opt-out after the first season. Now, this is just the cost of doing business, right? I know that a couple of guys, we had a pretty good debate, a pretty good discussion about this. Oh, you overpaid for Bo Bichette. It's $42 million plus, the $5 million if he opts out. It's going to be $47 million if he opts out. I don't think he's going to opt out. If he does, I can see him re-signing with the New York Mets, especially if he does well, especially if they do well as a team. I think they would want him back. He's 27 going on 28. So he'll be at that perfect age that, Stearns likes to operate with free agents. But also this gives the Mets, even if he does opt out and leave, I can't see that being a problem, because this just gives the Met prospects that are behind him at third base and shortstop just a little bit more time to develop, right? We talked about Ronnie Mauricio. Brett Beatty can move back to third base. You have Jacob Reimer, one of the top 10 prospects in the Met system, third baseman, that's progressing at a high level. So it gives them a chance to develop too. So, and again, this is just with the opt-outs, it's just a trend in baseball that's been going on lately. So, it's just the cost of business. That's really all that it is. I'm not worried about it. Let's worry about this year. We got Bo Bichette. Let's enjoy it. He's a great player. He has a great pedigree. As far as his family goes, Dante Bichette, a great baseball player as well. So it's just in his blood to be a competitor. I couldn't be happier with him on the Mets. I think this is going to be a great thing. And another thing I love about Bo Bichette is that he could play second base if, let's say Simeon gets hurt. So he gives you versatility with his defense across the whole infield. Not that you would want him to play shortstop, but just knowing that he can, I think, is a great thing as well. So, I don't think he would play outfield. So, it's third base and then probably second base. And then if it doesn't work out, you could always DH him. That's not the worst thing in the world. So I think this move is a great move just because the Mets needed some offense this offseason, right? And we'll see how it goes. I think it's going to go great. I'm not going to buy his jersey yet because he is only here for 1 year. So I think a lot of Met fans might have to wait on that. But I wouldn't be surprised if they wear his jersey. But again, just having him on the team, seeing him put on that jersey during his press conference, got me very excited. I hope the Mets keep this up. I hope they make more moves in the offseason. We'll talk about that in the next episode. So, speaking of the next episode, I will be looking into the Mets lineup, seeing what moves they can make. I looked at some trades, some signings that they can still do. I think that'll be a real fun episode to dive into. So, look forward to that. And like I said in last week's episode, I'm going to be doing a joint podcast with some friends of mine, the Diamond Geezers. So that's coming Saturday. So look forward to that. And until then, I will see you guys next time. Like I always say, stay amazing and let's go Mets.